Now we heard Caitlin speak about how she didn't really feel accepted, and that's why it took her so long to reveal herself as Caitlin. Do transgender people feel accepted in South Africa?
It varies, because like Boo just alluded to, that you do not just, let's call this the transition period. You do not transition alone. The minute you transition, all these people that are attached to you need to also be able to adjust now and also transition with you, essentially. So the whole transition period, the whole transition process beyond the very trans person themselves is often a very complex one, because as we said, living in African communities, there is a whole lot attached to the gender roles that people occupy, that there is a long list that we already map ahead of what expectations we have of this person. They're already 3 years old, but already we're preparing when there's going to be a grandchild. We're expecting a son-in-law through them.
The wedding.
Exactly. So you can imagine that at 20-something, you transition and you say, hey, mommy, I am a boy. I'm not going to be wearing a dress anytime to get married. It's a whole adjustment of the whole mapping process that a parent had already done, not to mention all the other siblings around you, not to mention people you work with, their children, because a whole lot of people get sort of linked to you in many extra ways. So as such, in a South African sense, trans people deal a lot, I think I would categorize it with the religious attitudes that then are compounded on them, in saying that you are wrong, you are evil, you are working against God, you are antichrist. There are also then the traditional and the cultural kind of perspectives that say you are not African, you're not Zulu enough, you're not Tswana, we do not do that, you cannot be one of us, so you must come from somewhere. So there's still also that very dynamic of saying, when African people come out or express themselves as being trans, it just all of a sudden becomes dissociated with being African, with being what you were born into, the culture and the tradition that you were born into. So there's a whole lot of dissociation at times that happens within trans persons, as well as within the communities that they are in. And when we talk specifically to our South African context, it's still a difficult experience, particularly for individuals who do not necessarily come from those privileged backgrounds, who live in the townships, who live in impoverished backgrounds, where many people still believe that they can correct this kind of thing on trans people. We can make you understand that you're not necessarily, let's say we take a transgendered woman, we will make you realize that you're not a woman. You want to be a woman, then there comes these issues of trying to correct the person, where now corrective rapes happen to people, where we find right now as a country, we're sitting with a whole long backlog of cases and criminal cases that have been opened of trans people who have been raped, who have been physically abused, who have been, some of them murdered even as we speaking. But we're still sitting with a problem where on the communities, particularly the not so privileged communities, there's still a misconception of transgender identities as being somehow confused, such that they need to be brought back to understanding that they were born in a certain way and they should accept it that way. So as such, South African trans persons really experience a lot of violence on a daily, a lot of harassment, a lot of bullying, both just socially and in schools for children, and as well as issues around employment, where
a lot of
discrimination and stigma that happens for trans persons.
If, for instance, I had to go and look for a job, and maybe I produce my ID that say for instance it's somebody who has transitioned from one sex to the other, but you still have the ID of the previous self, and I come to you in an interview situation and you say to me, oh, so you are Elizabeth, and I say, yes, I used to be Elizabeth. Immediately, you see, we're discussing what is personal and which is irrelevant to the job at hand, you know, and at that point in time, then there's an opportunity of you to bring your own prejudices. You already feeling like, if this person was once a girl, how can you expect that they can do APC, as if girls can't do APC, you know. So you find that many people then they are pushed out, or they are forced to stay out of the job market, you know, which is problematic. It's problematic particularly in a situation where, for instance, other educational institution, and I go now and I go to, I don't know, UCT, and I say, okay, now I've transitioned, so please reprint my degree to reflect who I am now, because going around with this, I don't know, Josephine, you will not be hired. It's not about my competence, it's just your prejudice, you know. So I would have preferred that prospective employers would really look at my CV and employ me or not employ me based on what I can deliver, not on who I used to be or what I identify as.
Absolutely.
You know?
You speak as well to the issue of something as simple as somebody having a headache right now and going to a clinic nearby in their locality and being able to access simple medical care, where you get in and you're presenting with this simple headache and you get a paracetamol, a Panado, you go home, you get healed. For transgender persons, just primarily on the issue of gender markers and identifiers, you get to a hospital or to a local clinic that is government-based, simply by the virtue that the person presenting before a nurse or even the person who's registering at the registry table does not present as the person that the ID is reflecting, that person will not get that basic service based just on the simplicity of the trans identity and the expression thereof, of which you then come to realize that if then we're talking about even major medical and health issues that need medical attention, trans persons will most likely not be able to actually access those because of being and presenting different or gender variant in that essence,